I refused to let my son attend his girlfriend's funeral because I didn't approve of their relationship, but now that he's gone, I donated all his things, including his memories. My 17-year-old son has always been the center of my world. It's been just the two of us for a long time, since his father left when my son was 9, and I was the one who kept everything afloat. I worked so hard to make sure he had everything he needed, pushed him to get good grades, and ensured he went to college. I was strict, yes, but I had to be. I wasn't going to let my only child throw his future away. Then he met this girl, Lena, who was 18. She was in her senior year at the same school and came from what I can only describe as a broken home. Her mother constantly changed jobs, and her father wasn't around. From the moment I met her, I had a feeling she wanted to drag my son down to her level. There was something about her I didn't like. She'd show up at our house in ripped jeans, messy hair, and call me ma'am like we were friends. I told my son from the start that I didn't approve, that she wasn't the kind of girl he should get serious with at his age. But he didn't listen. They were inseparable for over a year. He'd stay out late, stop checking in, come home smelling like her perfume. I told him he was becoming someone I didn't even recognize. We argued almost every week. I even tried to put my foot down by saying he wasn't allowed to see her under my roof. He called me controlling and said I didn't want him to be happy. That wasn't it. I saw my own mistakes in him. I got pregnant at 19 by a man who left me before the ink dried on the birth certificate. I spent half my life climbing out of that hole, and I didn't want my son to repeat history with a girl who had no future. Then the accident happened. It was a Sunday morning. Lena and her friends were coming back from some late-night concert, and the driver fell asleep at the wheel. The car flipped. 3 girls went to the hospital, and Lena didn't make it. My son was at work when he got the call from one of her friends. For 3 days, he barely ate or slept. I tried to comfort him, but he wouldn't let me near. He just sat in his room with their photos, crying. I told him I understood he was sad, but he couldn't let it destroy him. I said he needed to move forward, focus on his future, not drown in grief over a girl who had made all the wrong choices. Then he said he wanted to go to the funeral, and I said no. He lost it. He yelled that I had no heart, that she was everything to him, that he couldn't live with himself if he didn't say goodbye. I told him funerals are for family, and she wasn't his wife. He said she was more family than I'd ever been. I told him he was forbidden to go, that it would only reopen wounds, and he should think about college applications instead of wallowing in his pain. He stormed out, slammed the door, and I thought that was the end of it. The next morning, I woke up and his bed was made. His phone was still charging on the desk, but his car keys were gone. I called his friends, and no one answered. Later that day, I saw photos on social media. He was there, standing by her coffin. Someone had tagged him. My heart froze, and I felt humiliated, like my own son had disobeyed me in public. When he came home that night, I was waiting. I told him to get out. I said if he thought he was so grown up, then he should go live like one. I said I was done with him disrespecting me in my own house. He yelled that I was evil, but I didn't care and told him to leave. He walked out without a word. I locked the door behind him. That night, I packed up his clothes, posters, computer, everything. I donated most of it the next day. Some personal things I threw away. Letters, photos, mementos of that girl, I didn't want them in my house. I told myself I was cleansing the house of bad energy, of the toxic influence that had poisoned my son against me. When neighbors and family asked, I said my son had run away. I told them he packed his bags and left because he wanted a fresh start. I even told my sister he probably went to Lena's family. I thought that would stop the questions. It worked. That was 9 days ago, and I haven't heard a single word from him. No calls, no texts, nothing. His best friend messaged me to say my son was safe but wouldn't say where. I told him to tell my son I'd changed the locks. He didn't reply. I thought he'd at least call when he realized how childish he'd been. I still believe I was right not to let him go to that funeral. That girl ruined him, and if I hadn't intervened, he would have followed her straight into tragedy. But now I'm starting to wonder if I went too far. I did everything for that boy. I sacrificed decades of my life raising him alone. I just wanted to keep him from falling into the same trap I did. Everyone online is calling me heartless. One of Lena's friends even posted about me on Facebook, saying I forbade my son from grieving. People are sending me messages calling me all sorts of names. I don't think anyone understands how terrifying it is to watch your child fall apart over something you know isn't good for them. Maybe I overstepped, but I don't think I was wrong to try to protect him. Comments. I can see why your son's father left you. You're the worst woman and mother imaginable. You say you donated his things, which is also known as stealing. And on top of that, you tell him he can't go to the funeral because it's only for family. What kind of bubble do you live in? Funerals are for everyone who wants to say goodbye. Your ex might be a bad person for abandoning a child, but you're far worse. Bravo, you can outdo an abandoning father in the race to be the worst parent. I can understand not liking your son's relationship with a girl, though I think you had some emotional incest and just wanted him all to yourself. But your son was devastated from losing someone, and instead of letting him say goodbye, you stop him and sell his stuff. You should have let him say goodbye for some closure. He couldn't date her anymore anyway. There's something I don't get. You complain about the deceased girl coming from a broken home because she has no father, but your son came from one too. I don't know the reasons for that broken home, but in yours, I'm sure it's because of your insanity. Hers might not have been as good as yours, but you have to consider all circumstances. You seem to have your family supporting you. Maybe Lena's mother didn't. Plus, I doubt it's as bad as you say. I think it's more your jealousy because of how sick you are. Update 1. I need to clarify some things because people, both online and in real life, are spreading lies about me. I've been accused of being abusive, of throwing my son out like trash, of being some kind of monster. I know how that post sounded. I was angry when I wrote it. Maybe I didn't explain things clearly enough, or perhaps people read what they wanted to read, but I refuse to be put in the center and pointed at as the bad guy here. My son still hasn't come home. That's the part one can't sugarcoat. No matter how I try, I now know where he is. Lena's mother came to my house 3 days ago. Apparently, he's been staying with her. She said he showed up the night after I told him to leave. She took him in because, according to her, no child deserves to be homeless after losing the person they love. I asked this woman how long they planned to keep him there, and she said as long as he needs. I told her they were overstepping, that it wasn't her place, that they were manipulating him in his grief to fill the void her daughter left. She slapped me hard. I didn't hit back. I'm not that kind of person. I told this lunatic to leave before I called the police. She left, and I didn't even let her take some of my son's things to bring him. If he wanted them, he'd have to come get them in person. I tried calling him after that visit with my number, but as expected, he never answered. So I borrowed someone's phone so a different number would show up when I called. He answered after a few rings. I said, "Son, it's Mom." And there was silence. Then he hung up. I know everyone will say I deserved it, but no one understands what it's like to raise a child alone. It seems everything you do is judged, and there's nothing you can do right. After my first post, someone from our town, I still don't know who, found it and shared screenshots on Facebook. Now everyone knows. People from my church, neighbors, co-workers, even my son's old teachers. It's been humiliating. The comments are cruel. They've called me abusive, narcissistic, heartless. Our pastor told me maybe I should take a break from community events because it's hard to give the weekly sermon with people whispering about you. Translation: everyone's gossiping and I'm the problem. Even my sister turned against me. She texted that she saw the post and I need professional help. I told her she's always been soft on drama and knows nothing about raising a child alone. She said, "But I'm learning. Watching you, I know what not to do. I've never been cruel for cruelty's sake. Every rule, every boundary came from love. I want to clarify that it's not like people think that I donated his things out of spite. That's not true. Yes, I got rid of some things that reminded me of her, letters, photos, trinkets, but I also donated a lot of his clothes to charity. I was doing something good, giving that clothes to people who might need it. Even my coworkers look at me differently now. One whispered that I donated my son in place of his clothes. I almost quit that day. I've been praying every night for him to come home. Last night, I found out through a mutual friend that my son has been going to therapy with Lena's old counselor. That felt like another betrayal because that woman wasn't all there, and it's obvious her counselor wasn't helping much. I emailed her last night. I wrote it from the depths of my heart. I told her I'm still his mother, that I'll always love him, and that he doesn't belong in that house. I said she's trying to replace her daughter with him and using him. I wrote, "You're not his son. My son is mine. I don't know what to do anymore." Comments: people put you in the center and point because you are the bad guy and you still haven't figured it out. Some people need a push to learn multiplication tables. You need a kick in the ass to realize you've been a horrible mother. People don't read what they want. They read what you wrote. You're the one not reading what you post because it's very clear what kind of mother you are. If you wanted to protect him from getting her pregnant, you should have taught him about safe sex, not stop him from seeing a girl. It was that easy, but everything's hard for you. Now he's unsupervised and can sleep with whoever he wants. See the problem? And for God's sake, the clothes thing isn't good like you think. Donating clothes you don't use is fine. People might need it. But here you donated things your son was still using. And his ex's belongings. Were those donated to people who needed them too? I'd love to read how you justify that. You accuse a deceased person who can't defend herself of not being right in the head. But so far, I only see one person who isn't right in the head. Update 2. It's been 6 months since my last post. If you're here to gloat, you'll get your satisfaction soon. Yes, my son is gone for good, permanently as far as I can tell. He moved out of state in March. He's at some university somewhere now. I only found out because my sister forwarded me a Christmas card from one of Lena's cousins, of all people. Apparently, he got accepted into a program there. Funny, because when I pushed him toward engineering scholarships, he said I was suffocating his creative spirit. I guess he finally got the freedom he wanted because he chose something completely different from what I would have liked for him. He changed his number, his email, everything. He blocked me on every social media he used. The only trace left is his old Facebook profile picture. One of him and Lena in a pumpkin patch. He's frozen there at 17, smiling like he had the whole world ahead of him. I keep saying like he's a stranger because that's how it feels now. A stranger I once raised. My reputation in town went to hell since the last update. I used to lead the women's auxiliary at our church. They replaced me. People still smile when they see me at the supermarket. But it's that pity smile, if it's not a smirk. Someone even wrote monster on my mailbox in chalk one morning. Still, I refused to paint myself as evil. I was a mother doing what she thought was necessary. At the end of March, I went to the cemetery. I told myself I was visiting my parents' graves, but that was a lie. I parked in the back, near the section where they buried Lena. I waited until after dark when the groundskeepers were gone. Her grave was covered in fresh flowers, mostly lilies and some wild daisies, the kind she used to pick and braid into her hair when she came to our house. I stood there a long time, watching the wind move them. Someone had left a camera lens cap and a folded note under a rock. I didn't have to open it to know it was from him. So I left a handwritten note for him for when he visited the grave again to read my words. It was the only way to reach him. I didn't want to use a cemetery grave to get a message to him, but it was my only option. A few days later, I got a voicemail from an unrecognized number. It was my son saying, "Mom, I got your note. I'm not angry anymore. I'm grateful in a way. Thanks to what you did, I could get away from your toxicity and all the bad around you. I've tried calling that number, but unfortunately, it doesn't answer. I don't think it's his, but I had hope. I'm thinking of selling my house and moving somewhere new, starting over. I feel like this place is haunted, like there's nothing for me here. But I feel like it's the only thing I have left of him. If I leave, it feels like there's no chance of fixing things with him. It feels like we'll be completely apart. It might sound silly because we're already far enough apart, but that's the only thing I can think about now. I've started therapy. The therapist asked in the first session why I hated Lena so much. I said I didn't hate her. I hated what she represented. She was the kind of girl who ran toward life without looking both ways, who didn't care about consequences. I used to be like that before my son. Before responsibility, before getting pregnant at 19 and having to bury every dream I had. Lena reminded me of the girl I was. Reckless, naive, full of hope. And I hated her for that. The therapist said it sounded like I wasn't trying to save my son from her. I was trying to save myself. I don't know what will become of my life at this point. I have nothing left to fight for. I used to go to work thinking I was doing it for my son, but now I have no one to fight for. Update 3. It's been a year. People told me to let the thread die, to take my shame and shut up. I'm writing today because there are things I need to say. Since my last update, I've made changes. I finally moved. There was nothing left for me in that town, just bad memories. It was hard sentimentally, but I had no other path if I wanted to heal for myself. There were only bad memories, people treating me as badly as here. The difference is there they did it in person. I knew those people. Here it's just anonymous attackers who don't matter to me. A short time after moving, once I was settled and found another job, I decided maybe enough time had passed for wounds to heal. I thought my son had gotten over his ex and would be more receptive to talking to me. Well, he didn't, so I've decided to stop trying. It's too painful to be rejected by your child over and over. I think the healthiest thing for me right now is to accept I no longer have one. And I know you'll call me all sorts of names. Say I deserve it for being a bad mother. But if you read the details of what happened, I think you can at least have some sympathy for me. I didn't even know what university he was at, but I knew he was studying, and I literally spent a whole week calling different universities with those programs to get information. Luckily, our last name is uncommon, so it's easy to find out if he was there or not. I'd say things like I wanted to talk about my son's tuition because I wasn't sure I paid the last month, and when they said there was no student by that name, I hung up. That's how I finally found his whereabouts. It wasn't easy. I don't know how many universities I had to call. When I finally knew where he was, I took a weekend trip to the campus, which was quite far. For those asking, tuition was paid. Then I spent 2 full days wandering the place, looking to see if I recognized my son and could approach for at least a hug. But I never found him, which made the trip and money I invested wasted. I would have stayed longer because I was between jobs, so I didn't have to return. But someone must have contacted campus security, and they escorted me out. They said I'd been stalking the site for days, I tried to explain I was just looking for my son, and if they helped, I'd probably leave soon after talking to him. But they said that was considered harassment, and if my son hadn't given me his dorm information, I had no right to be there. I came back later, thinking they wouldn't recognize me, but they did and called the police. In the end, I got out of charges being filed and left the city as soon as possible. That was a blow because it felt like fate didn't want me near my son. So I took note, and now I'm working on letting him go. It feels like grieving, like my son has died. But at the same time, no, because I know he's alive and I just can't be near him. That's what hurts most and what will take me longer to get out of my system. However, right now, there's nothing I can do. I've accepted I've lost, and I'm okay with that decision, though it hurts. For that reason, I want this to be my final update, as the title says. I won't return here even to read comments, though that's positive because most were very bad to me. I never said I was the best mother in the world, but it's easy to criticize when you're not a single mother doing the best you can. I came to Reddit hoping for some support, and I found almost none. Comments: no, zero sympathy. You're still the bad guy. You stalked your son when he doesn't want you near, and you still think you're not wrong and everyone else is. That's the saddest part because when people realize they're wrong, they can work to improve their lives. You don't. You're still a ridiculous person who'll probably die alone. Your son probably won't go to your funeral, probably won't care as much as he did for his ex. You have from now until your death to fix it. But every post is another disappointment, so I don't think you will. Post from the deceased girl's mother. I don't know how to start this, but I think my disbelief that a person could say the things she said about my deceased daughter is my starting point. I'm still struggling with losing my daughter, the only one I had. And coming from a person like that, who should understand because she's had a similar life to mine, I think that's the most painful. I want to talk to you about my daughter because I want you to see a different version of her. Not the version that woman wrote, based on all her biases. For starters, my daughter was a very strong girl, a teenager with a great group of friends who loved her boyfriend deeply. She was loud, as I called her, because she liked to celebrate life. She knew we didn't have an easy life, losing her father when she was very young and not having a big family support network. But we tried and got through. I always found it absurd that my daughter's boyfriend's mother couldn't empathize with that. And from what this boy told me about his mother, it seemed she had an unhealthy relationship with him. Something that was proven shortly after my daughter's death. When I read the comments on her posts, there were a huge number defending my daughter's boyfriend, my daughter, and putting that OP in her place. However, there are people who thought my daughter deserved it, to die the way she did, just because she went to a concert. That they were probably drinking, this or that. No, my daughter had an unfortunate accident where the car they were in had a mechanical failure, went off the road, flipped, and killed my daughter and one of her friends. Only one of the three survived. That brings us to her funeral, which was double. There were people paying respects to my daughter and the friend when this person showed up and made a scene. I was hugging my daughter's boyfriend, and he was hugging me because we were giving each other strength. We had both lost someone very important in our lives, and we were supporting each other. But she didn't see it that way. She started yelling that first my daughter had tried to steal her son, and now I was doing it. That I was trying to replace my daughter in the relationship, which was sick just to think about. But this woman had some kind of mental problem because nothing she said made sense. Luckily, some friends of her son and my daughter got her out of the place and stayed until she left. Someone called the police, and then they saw her drive away in her car. After that, her son stayed living in my house because he didn't want to go back to his mother. And I allowed it. I think no child should return to a house with such toxicity. I tried to go pick up some of his things from the house, but that went pretty badly. And then there were a couple of incidents when his mother came to my house looking for him, even with the police, and it was real chaos. The first time she came alone and was relatively calm. She yelled and such, but compared to her second visit, it was civilized in quotes. On the second occasion, she brought the police because, according to her son was a minor and had to return home. We had a conversation with the police where we tried, with her son, to explain what was happening and that we feared for his safety in the house, which was evident when she started scratching me and pulling my hair in front of them. It all ended with the mother being taken away by the police, and a few days later, I helped her son file a restraining order against her. Then her son moved out of state to attend university, and everything calmed down quite a bit. She was fired from her job and also from some places where she participated. Everyone started isolating her, and that helped her stop bothering me. Until one day I discovered she had vandalized my daughter's grave, writing with spray paint and destroying some things left there. We saw it on the cemetery cameras, which led to filing a complaint against her. It didn't amount to much, but at least she had to pay for the repairs and a fine, plus do community service at the cemetery. I don't understand why so much hate for my daughter. The only explanation is that she felt a type of love for her son that isn't healthy. There have been many things that make me think that, like her appearance at the funeral, but I never expected it to go that far. I think that's all I can tell. I just wanted to talk about my daughter and what she was really like. Update 1. Before starting, yes, I've read that the other OP posted. Thanks for telling me in the comments on my post. I prefer not to comment on that. Just tell what's been happening from my point of view and her son's. No, he said he doesn't want to write anything. He knows about all these posts, but he won't. She had moved out of town and I celebrated. I didn't throw a party, but I felt happy that she finally disappeared from my life, and I toasted to that the night she did. She hadn't done anything recently, but you know everything that happened in my previous post, and nobody really wanted her. Until she followed her son to the university. I don't know how she did it. Maybe the way she wrote in her post. Maybe someone helped her. The problem is she found him and traveled there. It was her son who saw her that day and alerted campus security. He still had a restraining order against her, and she was violating it. That's why they also called the police. And although she was released a few hours later, since it was the first time she broke it, she returned the next day. That led to her 30-day arrest for violating the order a second time in a few hours. She didn't leave there as she said she did, but she was away for a few days. After that, she left, and we haven't heard from her in weeks. Nobody knows where she really moved, just that she's gone. I don't know if she had any friends left in town after everything. I haven't talked to her family either, but I think even they don't want to talk about that topic. Her son is safe. Thanks for worrying about him. He knows that if his mother shows up again, she'll likely spend between 6 months and a year in jail. It would be her third strike, and it's quite serious in his state. If she had done it here, maybe it wouldn't have been as big a deal, but the order works nationwide, and the consequences depend on where she's prosecuted. Edit. Less than a month ago, I wrote about the OP who stalked her son, and today I have something to tell you. Not long after my previous post, the OP returned to the campus. She was stalking her son off campus limits for almost a week, waiting for him to leave without being seen. That was recorded by nearby business cameras and shows the OP, even though she wasn't supposed to approach. When her son left the campus, she waited just 2 streets away to jump on him and hug him, but violently. I don't know how to explain it, but she was scratching his face while he tried to get her off. Even the friends he was walking with made the effort to separate her. The police arrested her again, and after the evidence, the judge imposed 12 months in prison. It's like a horror movie that doesn't seem to end. In her post, she talked about leaving her son alone but it was just a lie because she was stalking him. It was like a farewell letter, as if she knew what she was going to do and what would happen. I just hope I don't have to come back at the end of 2026 to write about her again.